Hey, welcome back to the most electrifying podcast, Sports Entertainment Undefeated. And I'm your host, Michael Montgomery, a.k.a. Mr. Thanksgiving, because I make sure everybody eats. Sitting down with real people, with real impact, making real results. And next up, my dinner guest is none other, 2003 freshman All-American, 2005 first-team All-ACC for the Virginia Tech, drafted in the third round by the Green Bay Packers. 2011 UFL champion and game MVP for Virginia Destroyers. Now, 2018 Virginia Beach City Councilman, and now announcing that he's running for Vice Mayor. He's not only not running for you, but he's running with you. Mr. Aaron Rouse.
That's a great introduction, Michael. Thank you for having me on your show. It's a great opportunity.
Hey, I appreciate it. I've been practicing in the mirror to make sure I get all this stuff right, you know. But
you did a great job, man.
Hey, it's all. So how's before I start, man? How are you? How's living? You're kind of on a new stage, new life, new marriage, new career. How's everything going?
Michael, it's going great. First, let me say it's good to see you, brother. I think the last time we saw each other was in Super Bowl in Atlanta, I believe, a couple years ago. But man, I'm truly blessed. Again, I just said newly married. My beautiful wife, Jennifer. My son just graduated from high school. My daughter just started third grade. I'm in a new career path here, trying to have more of a profound impact in my community in Hampton Roads in Virginia Beach, Virginia. And man, I'm blessed. I couldn't ask for more.
Man, that's awesome. That's awesome. Good to hear. And for the people that didn't listen to my whole spiel, just tell people about Aaron Rouse, if people that don't know. Tell us a little about yourself.
Yeah, well, I think I think everybody is familiar with my football career. Drafted by the Green Bay Packers, was a standout player at Virginia Tech. Go Hokies! We had a great win over the number 10 team in the country. So it was a great win this past weekend. But man, I grew up in a single parent household. My mother raised four of us by herself. My father was been incarcerated my entire life, pretty much. And as fate would have it, just this past couple months ago, my father just got out of prison, which has opened up a completely new door for not only me, but for my siblings and I. And if it wasn't for my grandparents, my grandmother was the one who really helped my mother out throughout birthdays and holidays. Because my sisters are older twin sisters whose birthday is on Christmas Day. Oh, my birthday is 2 weeks later.
Oh wow, my father's on Christmas Day. Yeah.
Oh really?
Yeah.
And so he knows what it's about. If you come after at least 2 weeks after my siblings, especially twins, whose birthday is on Christmas Day in a single parent household, well, you can pretty much expect pretty much nothing,
Yeah.
But it was my grandmother who was there to really be there to help my mother survive. Well, at the young age of 49, she died from breast cancer.
Yeah.
And when she passed from breast cancer, my grandfather, who was an Army veteran, grew up in the South, worked his way up sharecropping and all sorts of things. He really instilled in me a great work ethic. And he laid the foundation to who I am today. He gave me three important values to live by. He said, keep God first, work for everything that you want, and your word is your bond. And that's how I live my life.
Oh man, that's amazing. That's amazing. So he was very. So how you talked about your father? How did you take that, and how the arrangement of the relationship between your father and into your new family? How was that going?
That's a completely new endeavor, I would say. Because there are so many things that when you're growing up, without a father. You talk about the birthdays, you talk about the haircuts, you talk about, guidance with women, and you talk about grades, you talk about either being there for all the football games or new things you want to get into, as a young male, and especially growing up in, a disadvantaged community such as the one where I grew up in. You needed that male role model, and that in-house male role model should have been there. So there's a lot that he's missed, but through my faith and through maturing and continued prayer, I understand now that I have this opportunity to get to know who he exactly is, and that's something that I look forward to.
Wow.
I think when you really examine your faith and you really believe in the word, if you're going to forgive somebody, you forgive. And I understand, time on this earth is limited. And so I intend to make the best of the time that I have, that we have for each other.
That's amazing. I listened to a sermon about T.D. Jakes, and he had a big sermon about forgiveness and talked about how the power to let things go and move forward. Not to take things, not to take your issues in the past, with you in the future. And that was something that was big that kind of stood out when he talked about it. So. I commend you on that, and that's amazing to hear. Let's go. I want to go way back. When did that hunger for competitive sports come?
Well, it initially came as a way for my mother to make sure I didn't follow in my father's footsteps. Playing, midget league football and Pop Warner was a way to keep me away from the streets. A way to keep me out of games and from selling drugs. And so I initially had this hunger from very early on. I would say it was a lot of pent-up frustration. And most of it, you can even argue it comes from being a middle child. I know there's a lot of middle.
Yeah, I can understand.
And so being out there and playing sports, it allowed me not only to understand the difference and perspective, but working the team, it allowed me to be a leader. It allowed me to voice my opinion and stand up for what I believe as well. It disciplined me also. At a very, very young age, it just allowed me to go out there and be physical with other kids. Something that I enjoy.
Yeah. When you talked about the frustration and that pent-up anger, I knew exactly what you was talking about, because I grew up the same way. I was a baby, but, when I had a chance, I was a super shy guy. And when I got open and started playing, and I love, the physicality of football. And I remember you talked about you always played with a chip over your shoulders, like going through what you lived through and playing a game, outworking somebody. Just talk about how that chip on your shoulder propelled you to newer heights from high school to college.
Yeah, I mean, from very early on, like I said, my grandfather, he instilled a great work ethic in me. And pretty much when my grandmother died, he said, listen, you're a man of the house. And so I was about 10 years old. He put a lawnmower in my hand and said, all right, it's time to go to work. He said, you take this lawnmower from this neighborhood, you take it to the affluent neighborhood across town. At this point in time, it's in Norfolk, Virginia. Take this lawnmower across town to the affluent neighborhood, you cut grass, you make money, and you bring it home to your mother. You give a lot to your mother, and you save a little bit. And so from that point on, I was like, I'm 10 years old. The Christmas is over. I'm only getting a belt, maybe a basketball for Christmas. I got to work. And so I developed this very early on mentality of really a young man, not as in the aspect of a young adult, but as a young man who was working to provide for his family. There were times where when we moved to Virginia Beach, which is right down the road off of Virginia, I was in about the sixth grade, and I got a job working as a custodial helping hand, so to speak, through this federal program that allowed young kids to work with a work permit. And so from that point on, my mother was like, listen, you got to help buy your school clothes. You help out around here with bills and things of that nature. And so that's what we did. So I had to chip on my shoulder because during the summertime in Virginia Beach, you had these kids going on vacations, to foreign places, getting on planes and everything like that. And I'm working at the school bus garage, watching school buses, taking gums money, pumping diesel, trying to make sure I had, nice school clothes and school supplies to go back to school. And then when we get out there on the football field, they all dressed to the nines with nice brand new cleats,
got shoes,
visors,
Jordans, and everything.
Yeah, it was the wristbands back in the day.
Oh yeah.
You were doing something. I said, nah, man, I'm about to make them take that wristband off.
Yeah.
And so I was out there being extremely physical with those kids.
Yeah, this was. I remember I was out there with Payless shoes, and I'm from a little small town, and I used to run through them. I used to run through shoes like a week or two, and I remember my mom. And during that time, between like 12, my age would go up to my sizes. So my mom just got tired of buying shoes every other week, so she bought me like a pair of 17 shoes when I got to my 10th grade. And she's like, "Here, I bet you ain't gonna grow out of these."
Oh, wow.
So I could understand. And growing up, Virginia went to balled out. What when you went to Virginia Tech before? How was the process? Did you go to any other visits outside of Virginia Tech?
Well, I think initially my mindset was to graduate from high school. Something that my mother instilled in me. This was something that was very important to my mother because for so many of young African American men like myself growing up in these communities, you were either dead or in jail. And so just graduating from high school was in itself a monumental achievement. And so we didn't think about college. College wasn't something we even thought about. It wasn't something we planned for because we couldn't afford it, number one.
Yeah.
And it was hard enough just surviving every single day. And so graduating, playing football, and being in a position to graduate, it brought the likes of Florida State, UVA, North Carolina State, Georgia Tech, Georgia, all the big name East Coast schools. And it was a couple from out west to sending in your letters, and they come and they visit you. Well, this was the era of Michael Vick, and this was the era, Roniel Whitaker as well, who's from North Virginia. And so these guys were coming off the national championship run, and they're in my backyard. And so 2 years later, I seen, Frank Beamer and Brian Stein's ring in my high school giving me a full ride to Virginia Tech. It was something where it's like, that's where I'm going.
Yeah.
It was a no-brainer. I was going to end up at Tech and play for Coach Beamer and the legendary Coach Beamer himself, but also Bud Foster, defensive guru, and he should be in the College Hall of Fame as well. And so for me, it came down to, okay, they came first and it came hard, a full scholarship. But also it came making sure my mother had an opportunity to see me play. I knew once I went off to college that there was nothing for me back home. There was no support system or financially or someone in your gift package or making sure you were okay. It was, as long as my mother seen me play one time and see where the accomplishment that I made that through her hard work, because it was her hard work that led me, that helped me to get to college. I wanted her to see her hard work pay off. And so that whole process in itself, it was one that we weren't prepared for, but we were most thankful for that came from us.
Oh man, that's amazing. That's amazing. And you said, and I remember you talked about how, you had to play games, and then after the game you would rush back to go because you had your child, and you so like every other game you would rush back, and you was like you would have to take the penalty and like run for like an hour for a whole like period of practice. Talk about how that phase in your life, because you didn't have time to focus on being there, but you had to be a man and raise your child and be there for your family. Talking about how that impacts you on how you viewed your life in the future.
Well, I think again, I keep going back to my grandfather, because he just meant so much to me in that point in my life and to my life period growing up, because he made it a point to he understood what it meant, even though he probably considered as a child, I didn't quite understood what believing in God first and working for everything you want and having your word as you make your word respond. Mm-hmm. Even though I may not understand those policies, man, through my experience, began to understand what that fully meant. So my freshman year in college, I think we were playing in the Air Force Bowl out in California. And I get a call from my high school sweetheart that we were going to have fun. And of course, I am 2,000 miles away. This is the first time I've ever been on a plane. Mm-hmm. I'm having a great time, in California. I've never seen California in my life, I only heard about it in a rap. Mm-hmm. And so, I'm here, I get this phone call, and I'm kind of like, okay, I'm 2,000 miles away, I can't do nothing about it. I'm away now. And so once I got back home, we sat down and we talked. I was like, oh, this is real, mm-hmm. This is real. And immediately I was like, I'm going to be a better father to my son than my father ever was to my family, to me and my siblings. And I remember having to have that talk with Frank Beamer and the coaching staff about going home my freshman year during winter break and spring break, because Michael, that is an important time for freshmen to get acclimated to college, to mm-hmm. strengthen, to get stronger, make sure they're ready for the year, for the season. And I told Coach, listen, I give you my word. I'm going to come back. I'm going to be in shape. I'm going to be that player that you all invested in. And I give you my word. I'm going to do that. So they agreed. I'm sure they had a lot of there was a lot of hesitancy there. Yeah. It was just, quite frankly, I don't necessarily believe that. They believe that I would do that. I don't think I'm sure they heard it all. As well. And so I go home. I get a job working concrete. I got a job working concrete. I was working there. I have so much respect for the men that I worked with on the concrete line. I was mm-hmm. 19 years old. These are men upper 40s, and working on concrete, and they were dropping so much knowledge on me every single day. To me, throughout so much knowledge on me. I have sheer appreciation for those workers. I get up at 6, work concrete, working at mall, working at jackhammer, picking up concrete, wheeling concrete all around, wheelbarrowing concrete all around there. And when I got off of work in the afternoon, I would train up at this open field near my house, and I would just work on foot drills. I would condition. I would do everything coaching us I need to work. And so by the time I got ready to go back in the fall, I'm sure they had the conditioning test in your report. Our conditioning test we reported was 16 110-yard sprints. And for defensive backs, you have to make it within 15 seconds. 15 seconds, 16 110-yard sprints as our conditioning test. Mm-hmm. And so I finished that with flying colors. I'm in great shape. I'm strong, I wasn't lifting weights, I was lifting concrete.
that is weights. That's probably better because you're outside and you're lifting concrete. So you actually, it's training you to work out in the heat. So
exactly. In that Virginia heat, we have humidity here, which is unbelievable. And so I worked my butt off, man. And, I finished that year. as a freshman All-American. And I just remember Coach Beamer and the coaching staff and Coach Gentry too. My goodness, Coach Mike Gentry, who was our strength and conditioning coach, really just patting me on the back and saying, wow, you know, they were really impressed. First of all, that I came back, I was in shape, but the year I had, because the year I had was basically like, you know, you have class, you have practice, but also my son was coming, so I was going home every other weekend, which Virginia Tech from Blacksburg, from Virginia Beach and Hampton Road was about 5.5 hours. And so I was traveling 5.5 hours every other week, back and forth from Blacksburg to Virginia Beach. It was almost like I was commuting. And because that was a commitment that I made to the mother of my son and to my son in itself, that I was going to be there. Even though I'm 5.5 hours away, even though I'm playing in front of thousands of people, you know, even though I am committed with hours upon hours of being an athlete and training, I'm also committed to hours and hours of being a student, and that came first. And so having all those papers and things that I'm struggling with, I said, I'm not going to forget the promise I made to you and to my son, that I'm going to be a better father to my family than my father ever was to us. And so that was my lot in life, man. And I won't say it made a man out of me, because, you know, I like to give that glory and praise to God, but it most assuredly developed even more my principles and those values that my grandfather instilled in me. And to this day, I mean, Michael, you know how hard it is. You play a college game 3.5 hours. You bruised up.
Yeah.
You know, you're sore. You're tired because your adrenaline's going the whole time. You're thinking about, okay, did I have a good game? Sometimes you did. Sometimes you're like, I need to watch film to figure out, you know, oh, I remember this play. I got to watch film. For me, my mindset was, okay, I wonder how bad traffic gonna be. You know, let me get in the shower real quick and wait about an hour, and then let me go home. Excuse me, 1 second.
Yeah, I understand, because when I was listening to a couple interviews, you talked about that. I know there was, you know, a big test, because a lot of times people had to come back, and you just, you know, you had bigger responsibilities outside of a game and outside being so, you know, not just a football player, but a father. And, you know, I just commend you, and, you know, letting people know that's listening, you know, you got responsibilities. You know, you always put, you know, a father first, then a football player. And that was really good morals that I think people need to live by. And you talked about how your grandparents was like a catalyst on, you know, every situation you came into. Was you thought about your words from your grandparents and how, you know, they treated you and morals instilled in your values, and that's amazing. That's awesome. That's awesome. And fun fact, my first game at A&M was against Virginia Tech. Yeah, I remember I was looking at them because I came out of surgery and I missed like a couple games, and we played Virginia Tech. In 2003, it was a super hella rainy day.
Yeah.
And, man, y'all had some ballers, man. Everybody on that team was like, y'all were just bringing them in, because, you know, it was always been a dream of me to get drafted in the NFL. So I studied players, studied teams, I studied the draft. And every year, Virginia Tech had secondaries. Y'all had D'Angelo Hall. Y'all had Vincent. Y'all had Green. Y'all had Randall, who was a good quarterback. Y'all had Marcus Vick, his little brother. Y'all was putting them out y'all had running back Kevin Jones.
Kevin Jones.
Yeah. So y'all had a squad, man. Talk about how being in that atmosphere of highly talented DBs that made y'all better.
Yeah, man. I think from the very early on, when I first arrived on campus, there was just this mentality of BDU, you know, of being a defensive backfield that just owned. We owned the secondary. That was our real estate. You know, It was a no-fly zone.
Yeah, I like that. DBU.
And, the real DBU. You got the numbers to prove it. You allow me to don't get me too hyped.
I like that.
But I have to give credit to our senior leadership. I mean, Ron, and God, please forgive me if I forget anyone. But Ranya Whitaker, Deuce, who was just his type of his mentality, which I saw a lot of what D'Angelo Hall got out of that. D'Angelo Hall was just a beast in his own right. Willie Powell, who was a safety, as smart as they come, directing traffic. Vincent Fuller, who, it's just one of three of the Fuller brothers, but Vincent Fuller, Eric Green, Darnell Wiles. I mean, these guys really set the mentality of the defense, and it doesn't even stop there. You talk about Nathaniel Beebe, you talk about Jason Lowry, you talk about Jim Davis, you talk about Kevin Lewis, you talk about Vegas Robinson. I mean, we had the number one ranked defense in at least top defense. We're in the top three of defenses in, I believe, from 2003 to 06. And really it came from just the sheer mentality and the leadership of those players who are making sure, hey, we do things right on and off the field, right? If you want to be a beast, if you want to go to the next level, you got to be committed. You got to get in the weight room. Ain't no substitute in the weight room, and we gonna compete in the weight room, because when we get on the field, we gonna compete on the field.
Yeah.
So that was our mentality, and of course, it was all led by Bud Foster's genius to get the most and best out of the players.
And you said a lot of people on the team was around the area, so they were from the area. So it had some level of pride. You couldn't be going back home and like, hey, man.
Oh, for sure. I mean, everyone was. I don't say everybody, but the majority of our guys came from Virginia. From VA. It was either the 804, which is the Richmond area, or the 757. Or 703, which is Northern Virginia. But majority of the guys that we had came from Virginia. So there was a sense of pride and a sense of buy-in, because we all played, either we played against each other or we knew about, we heard, guys' reputations before they actually arrived on campus or before you actually met the guy. And that was pretty special when, playing in the Southeastern District here in Virginia Beach, you hear about a guy like Mike Emo or Eddie Royal. You never met the guy in person, but when you got on campus, you're like, oh, I'm Eddie Royal, or I'm Mike Emo. You're like, oh, this is Mike Emo. This is the guy that's supposed to have, supposed to be so good, all that, but I'm going to bust him up in practice. So
shit.
We had that.
I forgot to mention Clowney, who was with us at the Packers.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. David Clowney, he's from Florida, Delray, he's Florida. So we had Florida boys up in there. We had a couple of Georgia guys, but there was, when we were in Blacksburg, we were all we had. We understood that we were very tight-knit. We held each other accountable, and we competed. It was everybody had a sense of pride, right? But their pride was built into a team mentality. Their pride was built off of, oh, I'm going to be better than you because I'm going to outwork you. And the next guy was like, no, I'm going to outwork you. So it was this iron shot iron type mentality. And when we played out there, you saw it when we played. I honestly think there were times where games that we played were a lot easier than practice.
Yeah.
Because guys was like, I'm not going to let you one-up me, in practice. There were bragging rights around. We call Blacksburg the bird. There was a lot of bragging rights around the bird.
Yeah, so I remember seeing, I think one photo I saw, y'all had like a lunch pail and had win on it.
Yeah. What's important now.
Yeah, that was dope.
So and that was from Coach Foster. He made it a point to make sure we focus on what was important now. So even if you had a bad play or a big play given up, you got to forget about that and go on to the next play And that hard hat mentality is just about encompassing everything, all the little things, and all the little things right. And doing all the little things is a lot of hard work because, human behavior is for guys to skip steps.
Yeah.
But, when you do everything right, that's like, hey, that's called discipline. Like, we were disciplined enough to make sure we got the right reads or where we're supposed to be. We were trusting our teammates to be there, and if there wasn't, we held them accountable. And there wasn't a sense of like trying to. You had to check your ego at the door.
Yeah. Because
if you made a mistake, it was just about, hey, we need to get better. Mm-hmm. And
so when they said when I saw when you get a penalty for hitting the guy too hard, they were like, all right, we'll just have to worry about we'll just one up. So, 'cause I saw they said in the scripture he had a lot of controversial calls of hitting players too hard, and they had to for penalties. So they had to. You're like, hey, Rouse just being Rouse, knocking guys out. So.
Well, I'm sure some of those calls were questionable. We had a mentality of just being a hard hitting defense, and myself, being a leader and a captain for the team. That's something that every single game we were going to bring it to you. We were going to break your will to play the game, and some of those calls go either way. It's football. It's a physical sport.
Yeah, not to get off subject, but Tom Brady. He did an interview and he talked about how the offense, the quarterbacks are at fault of how the game is being played and how it's being dumbed down because of, if you're throwing the ball in a certain area of the field, the receiver is defenseless. Right. So a lot of times, it's not the defensive player. He's just playing football. And that's why the competitiveness of football went down because of so many pigeon-toed rules of defensive players. Right. You can't hit the quarterback. You can't hit receivers. And he said a lot of it is based on the quarterback's fault because sometimes he's throwing it where he doesn't need to be throwing it, putting the receiver in a defensive position where a guy we're taught to hit people and be violent, but they're kind of pigeon-toed on the calls because they want to make it more safer for the offense because that's what people like to see is score points.
Yeah, well, and again, I would agree with, Mr. Brady's statement. I mean, the guy who's won, big Super Bowl championship, so I think he's been in the game 22 years, so I think he knows what he's talking about. But, I would say for those, the NFL who are making these rules, is that you are giving the offense a competitive advantage. Mm-hmm. And so when you start doing that, you start to see the level of defensive play go down because not only are guys being held accountable for hits on the field, but you're also fining them, which is a lot of money. You are charging their pockets for these hits. And so guys are going to err on the side of caution and safety. It's like, well, I don't want to get fined, and sure, I could have hit them, but, and that type of thinking also allows people to get hurt, enables people to get hurt, and I think it takes away from the game because just as much as people love offense, people love defense just as much.
Exactly, because I saw.
And remember, defense wins championships.
It always wins championships. That's how Tom Brady won all his. You couldn't tell me. Every year he had the top 5 defense. Every year he won the championship. Everybody was talking about Tampa Bay was terrible. No, they wasn't bad. They had ballers. They just needed a plug. Yeah, they just need to plug and play. They just needed a quarterback that's not going to throw them out the game. Make good, smart decisions with the football. He already had a defense. He already had all-pro receiving core. So it was just a plug and play and not to overmanage the game. And that's how I looked at it when he got there. So, but I just want to take fast forward. We talked about Virginia Tech, with the Green Bay. We all both play with Green Bay and play with Aaron Rouse. And how did you feel about when we got there? Aaron Rodgers was our scout team, and he was behind Brett Favre. And did you ever think? I don't know. I'll let you talk. Let you get your opinion. But did you ever think Aaron Rodgers would become this successful? Once he started getting in.
Well, I think initially, I think it's enough so that, and as players, we wish everybody the most success as they can possibly have in the National Football League, because we understand those careers aren't always long. And so in retrospect, did I think Aaron Rodgers had a career that he had? I can't answer that question because I never looked at Aaron Rodgers' career. I was trying to figure out how my own career in that aspect of it. But you most certainly could see that he had the ability. I mean, most people don't even realize we actually Virginia Tech played against Aaron Rodgers back in I think it was the Tostitos Bowl or the Outback Bowl, some bowl in Arizona. And it was a complete shootout. I mean, this is where, it was like 63 to 60. It was like Virginia Tech versus Cal, and we lost by like 3 points, I believe. If I'm not getting the scores incorrect, I just know it was a lot of points on the scoreboard. And Aaron Rodgers was slinging that thing. Yeah, he was throwing that ball, man. But I think when we first got to Green Bay, Mike Saul, I was just amazed to see, Brett Favre, and because I just played with Brett Favre on Super Bowl, Tapper Bowl, Tapper Bowl, Super Bowl, and quite honestly, had a chance to play with a guy I looked up to forever was Charles Woodson. So Charles Woodson almost made me go to Michigan. Oh, wow. He almost made me go to Michigan, and I told Charles, I said, well, Frank Beeman came, so I stayed in Virginia, man. But again, I don't think anybody is surprised to see the level of success that Aaron Rodgers, or Charles has had in the National Football League.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I knew, I always say, practice makes perfect, and for the amount of time, he was on the bench. He was serving the scout team. He was practicing. He developed his craft, his confidence, and just went out and proved it when he got on the field. And I think the level of the receivers that he adopted once he came in the starting role, Donald Driver, Jennings, Jordan, Michael Finley. So the guys he was throwing to was not bad anyway. So I think
that always helps.
Yeah, so
throw the ball, somebody catches.
Yeah, somebody who's all pro and all star. I forgot James Jones. So he had the receiving core he adopted once he came the starter. I think really elevated him as well. Not only practicing, but the receiving core he was playing with. So
most certainly, I think that most certainly helps. Those guys were truly dependable receivers, and also I just think give credit to more credit to Aaron Rodgers, the level of work though to put in, and the size of the shoes that one would have to fill coming after a Hall of Fame player in himself and Brett Favre. I mean, that level of pressure in itself is absolutely, tremendous. And so for him to rise to the occasion, I think you got to take your hats off and give him, more props as well.
That's what's up. Okay, so we want to fast forward to motivation, new career, things you want to implement. Talk about the motivation behind, you running for vice mayor.
Well, first of all, I think it's being appointed to vice mayor. So there's not an actual election where the people get to vote for vice mayor. This is a council appointed position by one's peers, by one's colleagues. But initially, Michael, getting into politics wasn't something that I planned. It wasn't something that was on my radar. I graduated from Virginia Tech with a Bachelor of Science degree in Sociology. And so I was always curious of why our community, had to go through so much struggle to get resources, why we were so disadvantaged, why we didn't own any of the businesses around in our community, why the streets always looked dirty or never fixed on time, things of that nature, and why, quite frankly, the schools within our community didn't always have what it needed didn't have always what it needed compared to schools in other districts. And when I had an opportunity to go to Richmond, Virginia, our capital, where our General Assembly is, that is where I learned so much. That is where I learned how the decisions in Richmond, how they have a downstream effect of the disparities when it came to business or education, or minorities owning businesses, and why so many young men like myself were basically ending up in or choosing levels of choosing pathways that didn't always lead to success. And so for me, my motivation came to, hey, I want to ensure that the next generation doesn't have to go through what I went through. I want to make sure that our generation has a voice in these decisions. And I want to change this era of politics where I have to, put you down or degrade you to lift myself up. Like that doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to be this way. And so that's my motivation. I want to lead us into a new era of respect. Yeah. And it's, hey, let the ideas, compete against each other. But let's have a respectful conversation, and whatever ideas that let that rise to the top. And so that was my motivation.
And I also heard you say, offense. One part is offense, one part is defense, and special teams are the people. We both are different sides. We're both all on the same team. We both trying to get to the win, to the goal, but it's all about working together. And regardless if whatever you believe in, whether if you're Democrat, whether if you're Republican, we're both trying to make things better for our children.
Right. Right. Michael, you are well studied, man. Like I am impressed. That is exactly right. I try to use football analogies a lot because I think most people, watch football and love the game, and they can identify with that. And you're exactly right. And I use that offensive defensive type of analogy because we are all on the same team. Like we still want to win at the end of the day, and so. It doesn't matter, if there's a disagreement, we can be cordial and respectful, and we can work that out because at the end of the day, it's about Americans and America winning, right? It's about moving that needle forward. And so for me, even being in this nonpartisan seat, there are always forces when people try to say, well, I'm going to put you in this box, or I'm going to place you in this lane. And the hardest thing has been to fight back against that and say, don't place me in the box. I support everybody. I understand what's right and what's wrong. My agenda is one that serves the people as a whole. Now, some would say, you're too optimistic, but that's just what I believe in, and I think that's what the people want and deserve and need right now.
Exactly. And you also reiterated, a part of one of your reasons was, you was getting tired of seeing, career politicians make decisions that benefit special groups and wealthy campaign contributors. And I'm wondering, you're fairly new. You're new in this situation, and I'm wondering, what's set standards and setups put in place where you don't fall into that situation.
Right. I think, Michael, I think I'm tried and tested now, I'm a young man, but I've been 4 years into my term, and throughout my 4 years, we have been through a terrible mass shooting. We have been through the COVID pandemic. I've helped bring in a world-renowned festival to our community that celebrated our diversity of our culture. I helped lead the way to hire a new city manager, our first ever African-American city manager for the city of Virginia Beach. Also helped, I'm a liaison for the Minority Business Council, and so I helped lead the effort in the model that the state of Virginia modeled their minority business council after our minority business council. And so with all of these things that I say, if you notice, I say I've helped.
Yeah.
Because without a team, none of this gets done.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are career staff and people that have been not only just committed to our region, but committed to the city of Virginia Beach and its people for 20, 25, 30 years, right? And so you understand, you know, and I know I understand from my time being an athlete that nothing gets done without a support.
Yeah,
without a team of people to support. Just like, you know, many people, when they think about athletes, they think about, the coaches and the players. They necessarily don't, at a second thought, think about, you know, the trainers, making sure the players are out there and able or can do what they do, who are taping their ankles or, you know, putting ice on the shoulders, who are helping the players, but the credit goes to them. You know, the players, the equipment managers who help provide everything that we need. That's how I see our stats here. But, you know, it's one thing to understand, you know, that part, and then this other thing is another thing to understand that it takes money in politics. You know, it takes money to win an election, not an enormous amount of money. I think there should be safeguards against, you know, people just being able to just dump enormous amount of money to silence or to push someone else's voice out. I think we can still build in better safeguards against that. And so, but there's a lot of things that we can do to make sure that people whom we are elect, we held them accountable. And those are people who have a high sense of, you know, moral, ethical, and principle values. And so I think that's something it's something we need in this country today.
Exactly. I always believe, you know, in provoke change, you know, you have to be disruptive, but with a cause, you know.
Sure.
And I want to know, you know, what was your cause and what was your plan like to implement that cause?
Yeah, when you say cause, can you be more specific? Like, did I have a specific cause? Or?
Like the first, like, a need you like to address, you know.
I think, you know, there are so many things I like to, you know, address just within our city. Right now, we're a coastal city, so we deal with coastal flooding a lot. You know, we have a huge bond referendum coming up pretty soon where we need to be able to better fortify our city against sea level rise, wind tides in the southern part of our city, and just stormwater runoff. So that's one thing, flooding. The other thing is also our workforce. We educate our kids so well in our community. We have some of the best schools in the state, and yet after they graduate, they leave. You know, they leave because of other communities, such as, you know, and I don't want to say their names, but other communities are being a lot more progressive, and they're being progressive not in just the social avenues, but also in the business avenues, where they are making it a point to support minority businesses, making it a point to support small women businesses and veteran disabled businesses as well. And these are the things where I feel as though we have to look at. We have to start being more inclusive and more innovative in the way we support our small businesses. So that's an avenue. And then also, again, keeping our attracting businesses to Virginia Beach. You know, I think we have all the potential in the world, but we have to put action to where our word seems to be. And I know there's a lot of politicians that like to give great speeches, have great oratory skills. But Michael, you and I both know it comes down to action. People can talk a great game throughout the week. They can talk
game,
talk a good game.
Yeah, talk
right?
y'all just socks and make it like philosophical. Use all the big words and everything.
Right.
But when it down to work and getting things done for the people they said they're gonna do, it's far in between. And that's one thing, I had a lot of respect for you. And, you had the ability to call out what's wrong is wrong. What's right is right. And, that's the thing that, I don't care, which side you're on, It's all about doing the right thing. And, I remember Charles Barkley said a statement, that he feels that it's a lot of good people out there, regardless of what politics you believe in. There's a lot of good people, but sometimes I feel like, maybe it's the media or politicians. It feel like they're forcing each other against each other, and it shouldn't be like that. It should be a respectful level between each other. We're all trying to get things done, trying to make it better for our kids and for our elderly. So
that's a great point. I think we all play a role in this thing we call society. The media plays a role, most certainly plays a role, but we also have individual roles that we all play that contributes to this society. And I don't care who you are. I don't care what your party affiliation. I don't care what your profession is. What I care about is, as people, as human beings, do we treat each other with humility and respect? I think we've lost sight of the fact that we are people. We're human beings. There's nobody that 100% of the time throughout the day is something. You know what I mean? What I mean by, if you go to work from 9 to 5, when you get off at 5 o'clock, you take whatever uniform you have on or whatever role you're in society, and you're you. To me, you are who you are throughout the day, no matter what party affiliation you are in, what uniform you have on, you are you. And when we start respecting people as each other, I think we can start to hear each other a lot more. And again, I think we have to get back to, and I know it's been hard because of this pandemic, and there's been a lot of great things to come out of Zoom, as we're doing now.
Yeah.
But I think we have to have real conversations where we sit down and we actually talk. And if like my faith teaches me, slow to anger. I'm not going to be so quick to get upset if someone doesn't quite understand what I'm saying or misinterpret what I'm saying. I want to make sure I present them an opportunity to clear that up, and I hope they would give me an opportunity to clear up anything that they misunderstood. That's my faith. That is what Christ teaches me, is be slow to anger. Don't be so quick to get upset. And that is something that has helped me out by far in being an elected official. Is, hey, somebody said something, I don't know what they mean by it until I actually get an opportunity to speak to them and see maybe I misheard something or misunderstood something. So I always like to give people the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
And like I said, I work with any and everyone.
Exactly, and that's the one thing I learned a lot about politics, and when I'm starting to, I think sometimes the overgeneralization of people or a certain job or certain, say for instance, police. I remember, you spoke about, when you were growing up, you had this bad, the bad interactions. When you got older, you start to learn, like, hey, not everybody's like that. And I think a lot of times in society, in the world, there you can find bad things in all things. And it doesn't mean it's the whole generalization of the whole people, So there's a thing where, I think it's overgeneralization and knowing that everybody's different. Not everybody is out to not everybody's racist. Not everybody's doing harm, and sometimes, sometimes bad police officers, bad politicians, bad are oversighting on the good people that's trying to do the good work. So that's one thing I kind of took from, what you're saying and your interviews, that, look, you can find bad in everything, but there's also a lot of good people that needs to be.
There's good and bad people across every spectrum. Good and bad people across every spectrum. It's like that old saying, the creeping wheel or something like that gets the oil, or the loud gets the oil. But again, there's good and bad people across the world, in all different professions. And I think we just need to understand that we're people first. We're human first, and respect is always due. I don't care if I know there's someone who has a different viewpoint as me. I'm going to respect this person, because I think it says a lot about who you are as a person, then it says much about who they are. And then that's something that I know Frank Beamer would refer to as class.
Yeah. Well, man, I got one last question. I don't want to take up your time. I got one last question. If you can have any guest on my show, who would you have? And you got to help me get it.
Well, I was thinking this big. He's like, gotta help me get it. But okay. Any person who I think you should talk to for your show, and I kind of help you get it. Well, Mike, you were defensive end, correct? Or defensive tackle, or
defensive end, defensive tackle.
Yeah. You probably should talk to Bruce Smith, man.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, you probably should talk to him, man. I'll make sure I get his contact for you.
Okay, appreciate that, man. Hey, it's been a pleasure. Hey, everybody in Virginia Beach, y'all go and vote for. Y'all go and show support for this guy. He's doing a lot of great things in the community. Don't forget nonprofit. Make sure y'all go out to support Rouse House.
Rouse's House, thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, make sure go support. He's doing a lot of great things in the community. A guy who, he's from the community, transitions life, making things better for his community and for his city. Y'all go out and support. And remember, hey, Undefeated, it's not just a podcast, it's a way of living. And thanks again, and I'll make sure I drop all your links, like any social media you want to support or anything you want to promote right now.
No, I just think follow me on Twitter, Aaron Rouse by Beach. You can follow me on Instagram as well at Aaron Rouse, Aaron_Rouse, and support and follow Rouse's House on Facebook at Rouse's House, my nonprofit. And I want to say thank you again, Michael, for having me, brother. It's good to see you, and I wish you much success on your podcast going forward.
Oh, man, thanks again, and much success. And now remember, I'll put all your links in the YouTube. And remember, be blessed, and thanks again.
Thanks. All right.
Bye.